Hello everybody, welcome to another video. It's hopefully another short video looking at another poem from the Power and Conflict series. Okay, so we'll get right on into it and have a look at the poem of the Prelude, Stealing the Boat. So the other poems prior to this in the book, if you want to get the analysis on those, then you can watch those that are also in my Power and Conflict series. Okay, so a bit of background information regarding William Wordsworth. So he is someone who was a romantic poet, and therefore, as we've mentioned in other videos, a romantic poet typically would have a real fondness for nature, and they would perhaps have a real attraction for that. So we're going to have a look at some of the quotes here. Now this time I've actually put in one or two quotes there as well. Two quotes really, just in addition to the three quotes that I would advise you to perhaps go with. Now that is perhaps for the year 11s this stage, so close to the second paper and of course the exams, where perhaps you're not going to have too many moments to go over lots of different quotes and just perhaps stick with three for now. Okay, so we'll have a quick look at those shortly, but firstly we want to understand what the poem is about. So it's an extract, and of course it begins on a summer evening when the narrator, appearing to be William Wordsworth himself, finds a boat and it's tied to a tree, and shortly after he takes it out on the lake, and there's mixed feelings. So very early on there's excitement and confidence, and they are describing with lots of positivity regarding what they are seeing. And we see, following on from that, a mountain appearing on the horizon, and this really terrifies the narrator. And the third portion of the poem, that is about reflection mostly, where they are reflecting upon the different scenes and the things that they experienced and saw when they returned back. Okay, so those are some things to just bear in mind. So of course they're out with their boat, and having seen a huge mountain, they are terrified and they turn their boat around, and then they of course make their way back, and following on from that they are never quite seeing nature in the same way again. Okay, so those are some of the things you want to remember. So some of the key quotes, we'll try to get through this video a little bit quickly. So we've got the opening quote, which is usually the opening line rather, it's usually what you'd want to go with, and the final line as well, as you can see there in red both on the screen. Yeah, so just to perhaps clarify, just in case you're wondering what's happening in terms of the sheets here, so just because I thought would it be very clear to squeeze all of that on right within the center, so it just has been separated there. Okay, so the first section, and of course you can see there, so like a swan, that's more or less the end of line 20, and then went from behind, that's line 21 all the way towards the end, which is to my dreams. So the first line, one summer evening led by her I found. So one summer evening, very similar to say once upon a time, almost giving the impression of a story, something that is due to follow. And again, it carries a really sort of happy image really to it. So something that is a user, a reader can really relate to there, and perhaps almost childlike there as well. So perhaps just to reflect their excitement. Summer as well, so connected really with positivity and vibrance as well. So that also sets the tone that it's going to be, at least early on, it's going to be something that's perhaps quite idyllic, the scenes. And they're led by her. So doesn't really sort of clarify in terms of what they mean by this, led by her, but a strongest perhaps um, conclusion we can derive, perhaps it is led by, they are led by nature, so nature has been personified here. So that's something that you could just look to go into with the first line. The next key quote, which is "The horizon's bound, a huge peak, black and huge." Some of the language features of the comments you can make here is the use of the plosive. And this is, of course, after they have now come across the mountain. So the earliest reactions have been seen the enormous mountain that they were terrified of and in awe. So, horizons bound. Of course, we've got the repetition of the b and p here within this sentence. Of course, incredible amount of negative connotations here with the size and huge being repeated here, and of course, black there as well. So, real grim situation. In contrast, quite different to the earlier descriptions you'll find from, say, lines 1 to 20. Okay, and the final quote, which is in red again, as mentioned before, "By day and were a trouble to my dreams." So, quite a contrast to the tone and the mood from the beginning as well. So, one summer evening, as we discussed before, but now they are, it seems, not quite the same. They have been really affected by their experience with nature, and of course, some of the quotes that one quote there in green prior to that, of course, goes into details of how they do not see any sort of pleasantness within nature at all. So, of course, they are really traumatized by what has happened, and almost perhaps their faith, perhaps love, has been shattered and destroyed completely for nature. And going to some of the other quotes, addition to the main quotes. So quote number 4, "Upraise its head." You can go with that, which is in green, and that is on line 24. So the upraise, that's something, again, the mountain has been personified, but in a very ugly way. Quite a contrast to some of the language mentioned before. So, for example, like a swan. So here it is very um, negative and really gives the impression of real strength and, of course, rigor coming from the mountain. And finally, the fifth one, "Remained no pleasant images of trees, of sea or sky, no colours of green fields." So you can look to perhaps remember part of that. So no pleasant images of trees, of sea or sky. Perhaps you could go into that and just perhaps bring that in, which, as I say, will go into details of the reflection that he is now going through. Whereas, I say, he learns that things have really changed. And of course, we can see how this is possibly an overreaction as well. Yes, he came across a really terrifying aspect of nature, something he hadn't really experienced before, but that has really traumatized him, where even some of the um, minute, small, minor points in relation to nature, trees and perhaps even leaves as well, by extension, we could say, he doesn't really see those in the same way at all. So really he's placed everything, all part of nature, really within the same bracket, which is that it can be terrifying and threatening. Okay, so those are some points in relation to the prelude, "Stealing the Boat." I hope that helps. If it is of benefit, then please do subscribe, share, and leave a comment as well. Thank you for listening. Take care. Bye for now.